Italy, a country that invented batteries, pizza, and a set of useful gestures to communicate without any language barriers. A country that gave the world Lancia, Ferrari, Lamborghini, and Fiat Multipla. But without any doubt, a country of great engineers. Not without failures, of course. So today I want you to feel that old Italian engineering vibe by looking at a small piece of vintage Italian electronics, which, like everything in a country of the sun, has its own unique style and soul. I bought this one on eBay for 150 euros in perfectly working condition, and the reason I bought it was its look. It reminds me of a General Electric fridge from 50s, and I believe it would look cool in any apartment. But obviously it's not a fridge, but a radio, which still functions quite well. Let me just see if I can find any music station. The company, Brionvega, I hope I pronounce it correctly, was founded in 1945 and became popular because of their quite interesting designs. And they still produce such radios, but with a slightly different design and a different price. This one, for example, costs around 500 euros. Not that cheap. It even has a display, but I prefer older controls and looks. Why? Because if you watched my video about the Sankyo clock, you know how huge of a fan I am of mechanical switches, especially when they produce such a sound. Like music to my ears. And that is the reason why all the controls in here are very satisfying to use. Anyway, let's look inside of it. The whole radio case is made of plastic, except of the handle and antenna, which are obviously made of metal. The radio can be powered either from 220 volts AC or 6 C-type batteries connected in series. Quite cool that after all that time the insulation on the cable is still kinda okay. There is even Brionvega logo on the plug, meaning it is the original one. Opening a device always feels like opening a candy. You never know what's inside. How surprised I was to find out the whole device is held together by just 2 screws. Probably whoever designed it didn't know the main rule of mechanical engineering, that the number of screws proportionally increases the reliability of the connection. So the more, the better. Just kidding. After removing all 2, something was still holding the pieces together. I believe it was the Holy Spirit. So to open it, I had to drop it on the table. Gently and accidentally, and some part fell out. God damn it, I broke it, was my first thought, but actually it's a separate part which just sits between 2 other parts. Eventually, magically, the 2 parts came apart. Stop creaking like you're 60 years old. Oh wait, you actually are. Never mind then. So one half has an antenna and 1 wire coming out of it. The other has much more. 2 wires for battery connection, 1 AC cable and 3 wires for an audio jack, which can be inserted into the radio. So I guess I have to desolder the wires to be able to continue my investigation of the device. And the half of the device with the speaker looks quite nice, with that black PCB. Very stylish, I would say. Only later did I realize that it is actually burnt. It used to be green, but several places on the PCB suggest that it was overheating, and after some time it got cooked. Like a cookie that stayed in the oven for too long. But it still works, so who cares? The board includes a fuse, a step-down isolation transformer, a full bridge rectifier, and a capacitor to smooth the voltage. The capacitor in it is Italian, by the way. What do you think? What is the chance those capacitors are still produced in Italy? The company indeed still exists and still produces power capacitors for different applications. Quite cool, huh? And the most interesting part of this whole board is this integrated circuit, which obviously is an analog audio amplifier. Quite an old one, but the datasheet is still online. even with the inner circuitry scheme and application circuit. So basically everything around the IC is the auxiliary circuitry needed to make it work. And I must say it's quite cool that they actually show the inner circuitry in the datasheet, because for most modern devices that's not the case, simply because it's so complex and wouldn't fit in there. Meanwhile, some extremely dry sponge fell out of somewhere. Maybe I can use it as a spice for cooking pasta later? Anyway, all components are only on one side of the PCB, but the board itself is two-layered. So basically, this half of the device is responsible for power management and amplification of the audio signal, and the other one is supposed to send the signal that has to be amplified. So let's get to it. I wonder what this tape is doing here. I hope nothing important. As you can see, this PCB was not overheating and still has a nice green color. As I said previously, the radio is actually quite old, and the PCB is also made using an old technique. As you can see, there are no straight traces or angles. The reason is that there was no mass usage of CAD and computers up until 1980s, so PCB layouts in most cases were created manually by drawing or hand taping the traces on a clear film. The initial layout, which was done manually, was larger than the actual PCB needed to increase accuracy. Then it was photographically reduced to actual size to create negative and positive films for further PCB material etching. And that's the reason there is not a single straight trace on this PCB. If you want to watch the whole video about old PCB manufacturing, the link is in the description. Anyway, let's remove the front panel. The first thing that grabs attention is those two gears. The mechanism is obviously used to adjust the receiving radio frequency and search for a specific station. The gear is connected to a tuning variable capacitor, so when rotated, its plates move and the capacitance changes, which changes the resonance frequency of the LC circuit. And just like that, only a certain frequency range is amplified. But where is the inductor though? And here it is. I guess it's a ferrite loopstick antenna, wound with wires as thick as human hair, so I have to be careful not to rip them. It is used for AM signal reception. Probably different windings of it are used for different radio bands, because the AM radio band is much wider than FM. By the way, if you're not sure what AM is and what FM is, here is a simple picture explaining it. Basically, AM stands for amplitude modulation, where information is coded in the amplitude of the signal, while the frequency is unchanged. FM in its turn stands for frequency modulation, where the amplitude of the signal is unchanged. So if this part of the device is for AM reception, where is the one for FM? For FM, a whip antenna is used. The capacitor is probably the same as was used before, but another section of it is used. Eventually, all received signals have to be pre-amplified before going to the speaker, using this AM-FM intermediate frequency amplifier. The board also has a bunch of other capacitors, resistors, and a lot of other components, which are probably the ones from the datasheet. A lot of them are tunable, some are switchable, and some of them are... I better not tell what it reminds me of. Another interesting part, however, is the display, which shows the battery state. It works like a galvanometer, where a current flowing through a winding creates a magnetic field, deflecting a needle in it. The higher the current is, the higher the deflection is. But actually, even discrete states of signals can be easily displayed using it. In any case, if you want to add something or correct me, please feel free to do it in the comments. And don't forget to check out my previous videos. They are quite nice. I want to wish you happy holidays and all the best. Love you, bye.